Good morning, church. I didn't mean to wake some of you. Good morning. That wasn't any better. Oh my gosh. I want to start with a little wifey story, and I'm going to end with a little wifey story. Happy Valentine's. Didn't warn her at all. Here we go. She was on her way home, hands-free driving, on the phone with me. She had been to the dentist. The dentist had the work she had done. The Novocaine, because of a big break, starting to wear off, and I can start to feel it. And so he hit her with more Novocaine, so not only her mouth, but her jaw and halfway up to her ear was all numb. And she had an experience where they were trying to rinse her mouth, and she said, man, I drooled all over myself and onto the dentist's shoes, and he laughed a little bit, and stuff. But she's calling me on the way home to tell me the story, and then she went into a lot of details about the story, and the story just went on and on and on, and giving me every little piece of this whole thing. And finally, when she paused to take a break, I made a small mistake. I said, so I take it your mouth isn't numb anymore. And somehow we were disconnected after that. No one likes being disconnected. And it's surprising that more recent stats, even on people who come to church regularly, can feel a little disconnected from Jesus. And that can be surprising when you give him your attention each week, that distraction. It's one of the ways Satan works. Satan can't pluck you from the hand of Jesus, but he can certainly distract us from the hand of Jesus. And so he fills your life with a lot of stresses and a lot of anxieties to get you distracted from wanting to spend time with him. We're in a series titled Dinner with Jesus, and today we're going to be, for some of you, at a very familiar passage. Mary and Martha's home for dinner with Jesus. Most of us know this story. However, because of the unique growth that we've been under here recently, we got a whole crop of newcomers here who will be hearing the story for the first time today. And I'm very excited about that. Even me, I've preached this passage probably about 5 times, and this year when I went into it, I see something different. I love the mystery of God's Word, that you can go into a passage you know well, and if you just spend a little time, if you just linger in the story for a little bit, God reveals something brand new to you. By the way, for all of our guests, this dinner with Jesus, in just about every dinner, there's a moment where Jesus reveals something about himself, but then he reveals something about his host or hostess. And we've been looking for these moments. It's been just an eye-opener in the way that we study this passage. Now, it's not surprising that when Mary and Martha are hosting Jesus and the disciples, Jesus shows up at their house with 12 of his best friends. The one, Martha, she is super focused on serving Jesus and the disciples well. She's super focused on that. Mary, on the other hand, is super focused on just listening to Jesus. And in that moment, Jesus will defend one and call the other one to correct their priorities. If you're looking, how does Jesus reveal something new about himself in this story? When Jesus is welcome into your home, he is the king who reorganizes priorities. Things that you thought were important priorities, he says, that stuff doesn't matter as much to me as this over here. And he comes into our homes and he reorganizes priorities. When you walked in here this morning, if you're a first-time guest, we try to splash it as big as we can. The banners hanging from the ceiling. These are our priorities. God, family, others. These are priorities to us. And we want you to have these kind of priorities as well, too. Well, inside this story, the obvious observation, of course, is that Jesus is not, I'm going to repeat, is not honored by all of our performances. But he is honored when you give him your attention. This is how God is going to start revealing himself now. He's going to reveal himself through Jesus to people who give his son their attention. All right, we're in Luke chapter 10, starting verse 38. Here we go. As Jesus and his disciples came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him, she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. We got to stop right away, ladies. This is unheard of. Rabbis back then, ancient rabbis back then, didn't allow women to sit at their feet. Women weren't allowed to be disciples and to learn. Jesus is doing something here that would have been taboo to others, but he is doing this because he is reinforcing how his ministry is now going to run. And many women found their way into his ministry. Many women accepted the call to ministry while Jesus was walking this earth. What Jesus does, gentlemen, especially to the young men in this room, he raises the value of women. Gentlemen, as you and I desire to be more like Jesus, we have to raise the value of the women in our life. Jesus invites her to come in. He not only encourages it, but he defends it then when Martha comes at her. Verse 40, but Martha was distracted. Just stop. Look at the word distracted. Distracted means pulled apart. Some of you are distracted. Everything in life is pulling at you. Not to say that you're not under some extreme circumstances. Some of you are. Some huge challenges. I know you are. But even in those moments, all of that distraction, it's just meant to pull you away from him. She was distracted by all the preparation that had to be made. She came to Jesus. She asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Oh my goodness. To have the audacity to go to Jesus and say, don't you care? Can you imagine? He's the one in this world who cares the most. And then she even gets a little offensive. Tell her to do this and tell her to do. Now she's giving the King of Kings orders. What comes next, Jesus is really going to tear into her. I mean, he is really going to let Martha have. No, that's not what happens. I don't know how you read the next verse, but I read it quite gentle. Like he's trying to get her attention. Verse 41, Martha, he says, and then he has to repeat it because she's still talking. Martha, you are worried about many things. One translation that's modern today, that guy translated this verse as, Martha, you need to calm down. It has been my experience that when you tell a woman to calm down, she doesn't like that very much. In a way, he's trying to get her attention. Some read it more harsh. Martha, Martha. That's not how I read Jesus. And then he does this thing that is so classic Jesus. You're upset about many things, but only one thing. Many things versus one thing. Many things versus the one thing. That's just classic Jesus. To say, let's reorganize here. Let's get these priorities straight in our life. That coming and listening to me needs to be a priority. Mary has chosen what is better. It will not be taken away from her. I see that as an eternal payoff. I think that it will not be taken from her as something that goes into eternity. I think every second, every minute, every moment that we give to Jesus Christ, I think pays off huge dividends one day. And it will not be taken from you. It's something that you'll hold on to and cherish and keep. Jesus reveals here about himself is that he is the Lord who cares about what stress is doing to us. He cares about what stress is doing to us. And so he'd like to help that. What he reveals about these two sisters is two different ways of going through life. One way is to slow down, learn to relax, spend some time at the feet of Jesus, and the other is to just go full on into all your do list. And you got two options today, which one you're going to take the time to do. Martha, when Jesus shows up, all she hears is, Jesus is here. But Mary heard, Jesus is here? Can you hear the difference in it? Jesus would love to spend some time with you. Martha is so busy. Now, this is the one I need you to catch. Martha is so busy that she's not getting the one thing that people need most of her. They need a Martha who spends time with Jesus. That's what they need most. The church here needs a pastor who spends time with Jesus. Your marriages need a spouse who spends time with Jesus. Your children and your grandkids, they need a papa who spends time with Jesus. That's what they need most. Your family, your friends, your others, but stress and anxiety and frustration and then bitterness starts rushing in, and it will come in and it will steal your time with Jesus. You need to relax a little bit. Even Jesus knew how to relax. Jesus knew how to shut things down in ministry. Jesus knew how to take time off, sit down, have a slow chat. He knew how to go fishing. He knew how to climb mountains at times. And Jesus only had 3 years to change the whole world. Ready, Jesus? Go. Wow. Even he teaches us the value of unplugging. Some of you need to unplug. Oh my goodness, we live in a time of fast cars and fast money and there's fast internet and there's a fast lane at Walmart and everything has been made fast so that it can save us time. That was what we were told. These inventions were to give you more time. And what has it done? It's just created more stress. You're just running around like wild men. You can't get your priorities straight. Every day is just rush. And the one thing that gets set aside first is a little quiet time with Jesus. Between now and Easter, maybe some of you are ready for a little challenge. You could pick up any gospel, and between now and Easter, you could get that gospel of Jesus read. It'll only take a few minutes in the morning. If you do the Gospel of Mark, oh my goodness, there's only 16 chapters in that. You only have to read one little story of Jesus and then close the page. Let that just percolate all day long inside of you. See what Jesus does with that. Between now, if you got 50 days, you'd be right about at the end of the book of Mark. You'd be reading about the resurrection just before Easter. It would serve us all so well. In the midst of all this chaos, Mary discovered holy ground. Right there in the living room. Right there in the crowded living room with all the noise and all the voices, she paused and tuned into Jesus and discovered that it was holy ground around her. I don't care where you do it. If you take your Bible to the fast food restaurant and sit in a booth for a few minutes, if you open it up in your car at lunchtime while you're driving from place to place, wherever it is, if you're tuned into Jesus, that little space becomes holy ground between you and him. Ancient Israel would go to the temple to have the holy experience, but now it's anywhere you give your attention to Jesus Christ is holy ground. This is how God works now. Listening to Jesus is now how you live a faithful life. So Jesus was being transfigured. This is the story of the transfiguration of Jesus. He takes only 3 disciples, Peter, James, and John, up on a mountaintop. He has them sit down, and then he stands in front of them, and he is transfigured into the glory of his heavenly being. He glowed. He was so bright they couldn't look at him at times. It was like looking in the sun. And then all of a sudden, 2 other people appear. Moses, representing the Old Testament law. Elijah, representing the Old Testament prophets. Now they're beside him. And in this unbelievable moment that should have left everyone speechless, the Apostle Peter opens his mouth and starts talking. No, don't do it. But he does. Lord, it is good for us to be here. Like he's a guest speaker on a Sunday morning somewhere, you know. And then he immediately gets into his do mode. Lord, you know what we should do? We should build shelters. We should do this. We'll build one for you. We'll build one for Moses, one for Elijah. We should do. And in this moment of Peter just running off at the mouth, the Father comes down in a cloud, and when everything gets quiet, the heavenly, to hear the audible voice of God the Father would be amazing. And he says this, This is my son. Listen to him. How about it? Are you listening to him? How cluttered and chaotic and stressed is your life right now? Too tired for time with Jesus? Too busy? Too distracted? Too pulled apart to give him a little time? Whatever it is you're chasing so hard that you would forfeit time with Jesus is a mistake. You're chasing something that doesn't matter. All right, so Monopoly at my house has a young family and playing with my wife and children. And they don't like playing with me because I play to win, baby. And it's brutal. You know Monopoly. You acquire properties, and then you build houses, and then you build hotels, and then you talk 5-year-old little boys into the worst trade they could possibly make. But, Baltic, that will serve you well, And you do this. And the whole goal of Monopoly, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a game, and you're playing it, is to bankrupt your family. Isn't that the goal? And so, man, I went after it, and I drove off one child, and then I drove off another child, and then I set my sights on my wife. I said, let's go, baby. And she rolled the wrong dice. She came around the wrong corner, and boom, pay me. And just like that, it was all done, bankrupted her. She got up from the table, and she looked at me, and she said, I hope you're happy. Now, gentlemen, can I get a witness? It's been my experience when your wife says she hopes you're happy, she's really not that concerned with your happiness, right? And there I sat, all alone. Oh, I owned the world. But then I picked up the box. And all the houses went back in the box, and all the hotels went back in the box, and all the money went back in the box. That fancy wardrobe with that top hat, back in the box. Those fancy cars, back in the box. And finally, I folded the board up, put the lid on, and I buried the game in the closet again. Is that the legacy we want to leave? That we worked so hard and we stressed ourselves out so much and we accumulated a lot. Is that our legacy? Because I'll tell you what, your family needs more. They need a you who spends time with Jesus. And so we got to start giving Jesus some time. Morning's the best. You just need to give a minute. A minute of reading the Gospel of Mark. Just read one story and then carry it with you for the day. It will change everything. I'll bet you after a few weeks we come in here looking a little different. I'll bet you we come in here in a few weeks with a new song. In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus. You can have all this world, but give me Jesus.